have attitudes and behaviours towards people with mental health problems really changed?
I think there's a whole movement coming about, and the movement's coming about because people are saying enough is enough. You know, the idea of the word mental conjures up, you know, a picture of this big psychiatric ward on the hill. The story that my mother told me, my aunt told me, is when you fall apart, that's the place they put you. We're very caught in the idea of illness and not recovery. So people go, Jesus, they put me on drugs, they put me in a psychiatric ward, and I'm stuck.
I would feel that attitudes are still really poor in Ireland.
When it comes to the crunch,
Yeah.
I can't see much having shifted.
People are very frightened and would feel very second-classed if they have to avail of some form of hospital or institution that they know is being written about in the inspector's reports, that it's been described as, you know, a very therapeutic environment.
In your professional experience, have you encountered the impact of prejudice and discrimination?
I see it much more at a level of what people are expected to put up with. People come to appointments, everybody is offered the same time, so you would spend all day in a hospital to see somebody. This is incompatible with work. Clearly the fact that such a large number of people have come here today tells me something.
In my own workplace, I've noticed quite a few people having some mental health issues, and I can see, you know, it's in the corporate world and people don't really acknowledge it.
Over the last 30 years of working in mental health, I have seen our services, you know, disintegrate.
People with mental health problems are still discriminated against in all sorts of ways and in all sorts of places.
But really, when you look at our prisons, and this is reflected in our prison population, vastly overrepresented by people who have mental health problems, who probably should be receiving treatment rather than incarceration. There's an assumption that people who are being processed through the courts will have a problem, but no real, you know, sense of meeting that with any treatment or proper support and assistance. I think it was Harry Kennedy actually who in a report several years ago referred to prisons such as Mountjoy as psychiatric A&E units. For the book which I just published last year, one of the chapters was about a woman, a mother of two, called Caroline McCann from County Monaghan, and she was an unemployed mother of two with severe mental health difficulties who had borrowed about 18 grand from her credit union in Monaghan. The barristers cross-examined her saying, you know, what did you spend the money on? She was like, yeah, my baby's funeral and headstone. And the atmosphere in court, and as that legal case was being prepared, the government spent €500,000 defending the system that allowed people to be sent to jail for non-payment of debt. As she was going through the courts, she was drifting in and out of St David's mental hospital.
Other people wouldn't come along because they were afraid they might see someone that would recognise them, and they didn't want them to know that they had a mental health issue.
I think the use of relevant real life stories from all the speakers really hit home.
Yeah, I think that it's possible to look at the space that the novel inhabits as toxic space, and to look at, just put some names on it. I suppose Ireland would be a toxic space. The pub, a bar, would be a toxic space. A family would certainly be a toxic space. And therefore, what you could do then is just seeing what this toxic space does to an individual over a good number of years. In this toxic space, which we might call Ireland, I suppose a number of things are changing. The first one is that in this extraordinary area of Dublin, which was once Grangegorman, someone's now going to build a university. So what was Grangegorman if it can be replaced by a university? Where is all that energy, toxic energy, gone if the space it can be raised to the ground? So is it possible that those terms that are used so easily and that I heard with a sort of shiver just now, and I mean, I don't want to get involved in an argument with anyone on the platform, but let me. Terms like schizophrenia or bipolar, what will those terms look like 30 years from now? Will they look like lunacy looks like?
I didn't go out there. I didn't tell too many people in the beginning because I fucking knew what was going to come my way. I've been brought up knowing you put it out there, Caroline, people are going to think you're mental, they're going to think you're a nutter, they're going to think you're a freak. I woke up in a hospital after an A&E and I had to be brought back to life and this is hard to say, but it's necessary. My husband had to watch it and I have 2 children here today who know their mammy's story because their mammy's not ashamed of herself. And I looked like shit that morning. I got sick, my bowels had released. It's not a nice thing when you've come back after a suicide attempt. But something in me said, right, McGuigan, you're here for something. And I clawed myself back into life. I clawed against discrimination. I clawed against the stigma. And I clawed against the feckin' system. I went through 6 years, went through Maynooth University. I got qualified as a therapist, done my accreditation, and I never forget my first visit. So if we're talking about attitudes and prejudice, and I sat with my first psychiatrist, I said, I've got my shit together. I've come through 8 years. I've managed to recover, build a life. I'm a strong woman now. I want to share with you what did work for me, what didn't work for me, what's totally off the wall, what the labels do, the impact they had on me, the drugs and the impact they had on me. I needed them, but how it was done. And I'll never forget, I came home and I cried my eyes out and I said to John, how are we going to fight? What are we going to do? He said, well, you're all out there, aren't you? Now, I don't know if he meant used service users are all out there, used therapists are all out there, and nothing ever happened.
What I was so shocked by was how the shell that is me, that's looking at you now, so close inside was the other one, waiting, was there. And there was a feeling all around me that everyone around, every single person almost, not just in Ireland, every single person has within them, very close to the surface, a set of othernesses or traumatic, inside parts that do need to be attended to. Further recognition of how essential that is could be very good for the individual who's suffering most, but also very good in relation to society itself, discrimination and all those issues to do with how we handle things.
As in all of these things, it has to be a bottom-up education.
So to talk with children openly, and I suppose, to instill in them that mental health is more of something on a continuum.
Well, we need to start from scratch and come up with new ideas, new models.
If we as a society looked at how we've dealt with big issues that were formerly taboo and embraced them, could we do the same to mental health?
To look at one of the success stories, which is drink and driving, which is that it really isn't acceptable now to say to people, I know I'm fine, I've just had 6 pints, but the car's outside, I'm going home.
That's actually a message of optimism that you can, within what is in fact a relatively short period of time, change something.
Have you ever had a time in your life where life's been really, really tough, where you've questioned your own sanity just a little bit, where you've experienced depths of despair, perhaps in grief, maybe after a relationship was broken up? I have. And everyone else has too. Because I think, and anybody who's been, affected by someone who's taken their own lives, is that you do imagine, as I do, of my friends, their last moments and what was going through their mind. If our social attitudes were any different, would they've got help any sooner? Would they have sought help, And there's 2 beautiful, beautiful people. And it was a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and it has affected me deeply, and I just think, imagine if attitudes were different.
It was actually quite a moving talk and a really lively discussion.
I got a real feel for how everybody really wants to make a difference. I thought it was brilliant, especially the interaction between all the peers as well as the audience.
So thanks very, very much for coming along today, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.